Welcome to the Aligned Singer. If this is your first time with me, man, you picked a good one. Man, you picked a good one. And if you've been with me before, oh, you also picked a good one. Today, I'm unpacking my perspective from doing OMG 15 years of work on the inner work of the behind the scenes of my career to help you understand how you can more quickly and easily create your dream opportunities in your career. And I picked that word create for a reason. Today, we're talking about a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. We're talking about manifesting. Now, you may have heard that term before, and if you did, you're probably getting really excited about this episode. But if you haven't heard that term before, manifesting means creating the opportunities that you really want to have in your life, creating the things that you want to have, the relationships that you want to have, the internal qualities that you want to have. I think about manifesting a lot as a voice teacher because I'm literally helping usher in a new sound in someone's voice. If you work with me, you understand what I mean. We are creating and recreating your voice to be your ideal instrument. We're manifesting. It's really not that complicated. I mean, it takes an amazing amount of expertise to do it, but when you break it down to the essential parts, I'm helping you create your dream sound. But guess what? We do not get to talk about this in voice lessons because we're busy doing that, so we're going to talk about it here. Man, I'm so excited to talk about this today. I'm so passionate about manifesting because I want you to get your voice, your work, and your passions and the things that you believe in out into the world. Like I say, every single time we're together, the world needs what you have to give because there's nobody else that's like you and there's nobody else that has your voice, your ability to interpret. You're as unique as a snowflake, and I want to make sure that I help you as much as I can to get your work into the world because it really matters. Before I break down manifesting and what it is at its most basic level, oh, it's going to be so easier for you to understand. I am so freaking excited. I want to make sure I introduce myself. Let me slow my roll for a second. My name is Sarah Hockey. I'm a professional classical soprano, and yes, I manifested that career. I'm a voice teacher. My expertise is in teaching and building your vocal technique. I'm really, really passionate about helping you connect the dots from wherever you are right now in your voice to wherever it is you dream of being in your vocal skill set. And guess what? We do that in the rest of your life as well. It's all about connecting the dots. And when we break it down like we're going to do today, you're going to see how simple it actually is. Simple, and yes, it takes work, but it's very simple. I'm also your bel canto bestie. I'm so passionate about technique. I literally think about it every day, most of the day. Today on The Aligned Singer, we're talking about the inner work. So we've covered this recently. If you've been around The Aligned Singer, you may have heard me talk about the inner work and the outer work. I consider, yes, building your vocal technique is inner work, but I consider that more the outer work. We're working on your skill set, your vocal skill set. Outer work examples are also working on your acting chops, being able to deliver a piece on stage really well, working on your performance technique and abilities, working on your time management. That's more of an external thing. Working on your ability to be able to set goals for yourself in your career. All the stuff that we talk about on The Aligned Singer. That I would categorize as more of the outer work. It's the stuff that you can see from the outside. Maybe that's a great way for me to explain it from now on. The stuff that you can't see from the outside, but you see the effects of, actually very much like singing, you see the effects of is the inner work. And we're going to park on the inner work today. This is so important. Man, if I can get you to understand this, it is going to change the game for your career. It's really, I got just chills all over. This is going to change the game for you. I'm not saying that it's the easiest thing in the world to actually implement this, but it's also not the hardest thing in the world. If you're committed to growth, and I know you are because you're with me right now, then you're going to love this. So I'm going to take it back to when I first learned about this terminology and what this was. What I started to learn way back in 2014 was that these things like the law of attraction and manifesting basically meant that I could get in the driver's seat of my singing career. Now, let me be honest with you. Pretty much all I thought about, and the carrot always for me, even to this day, is still singing opportunities, being able to express my gift in the world, and some other things too. As I mature as a person, sure, the internal things are definitely there and probably more important to me at this point. But way back in 2014, all I cared about was manifesting better opportunities in my singing career. And I betcha, since you're here with me right now, you care about that a lot as well. So let's talk about what I found back then. And I'm so curious if you've heard things like this, if you're going to track with me, or if you've had a different experience. There are different schools of thought out there. What I started to learn was that we have the ability to create our reality. That may sound really out there for you, but basically what it means is we have the ability, by doing the inner work, to create better and better things that are more aligned with who we really are deep inside, who you really are deep inside. If we start to pay attention to what's going on inside of us. Up until that point, I had not thought about, much at least, about addressing what was happening inside of me. I was super committed, and this is totally developmentally appropriate for someone in their early 20s, in their teens, on working on the external, my ability to perform. As you probably know, if you've hung around with me before, I had a lot of vocal trouble to unpack and transform, which is why I became so passionate about vocal technique and how I became such a great voice teacher and a technician, because I had to do it all myself and rebuild my instrument when I first moved to New York with my teacher at Juilliard. It sucked. I mean, he was great and he is great, but it sucked. But I didn't know that I could start working on the inner part of me as well to accelerate and bring opportunities, accelerate my success and bring opportunities to myself more easily. And my guess is, if you are with me right now, you want to accelerate your success and have that path be as easy and simple as possible. And that's not selfish. That's not whatever might be muttering or other people might mutter. That's not true. Your gift is extremely important to share with the world. Just want to clear this up right away. And you are of service to the world. And so if there's a bunch of blocks in the way, unfortunately, you're stealing your gift from the world. But guess what? It's your job to clear the way. And let's talk about that for a second. So when you start to learn about what we're talking about today, how to manifest great opportunities in your career, it starts to take the power away from other people, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. And puts it back inside of you. This is a good thing. It's also a confusing thing, because in the performing arts, we audition for jobs. That's how you do it. The eventual decision maker is not you. However, everything that comes before that, or most of what comes before that, can be up to you. And instead of leaving it all to someone else, which I think is disempowering as a singer, you can start to take your power back and be empowered. And that's what I want for you. Now, how do we get there? Let's go back to manifesting for a second. Manifesting, it at its essence, is being able to draw quickly and easily to you the experiences that are in your life. I want you to stop and think for a second. Is there anything in your life that you have wanted? It could be a material item. It could be something like a clothing related item or a relationship item. Maybe you wanted a romantic relationship. It could be looking for mentorship for your singing, and you found like your perfect fit voice teacher, your perfect fit acting coach, something like that. It could be some clothes. That's a really easy way to track it, I think. Sometimes I've spoken before on the Aligned Singer about how I got this house. Another way of saying how I got this house is how I manifested this house. And at the point when I actually this did come into my life where we are right now, if you're listening, look deeply into your earbuds. We're in my home office, which at the age that when I found out about manifesting, I was not thinking about. I could not possibly imagine being able to manifest a home office, but here we are. And I'm so happy you're here. I love having your energy in this space, but that's manifesting. So I want to take it back to you for a second. Is there anything in your life that you can think of, maybe it is a singing opportunity, that would be super cool, that you think you've manifested? Well, you think you have. The stuff that's in your life right now, the people, and this may hit you tight like a ton of bricks and it may light you up. It depends on where you are in your life. If things are a real struggle, it might not feel so good to hear this. If things are going really well, you'll be like, wow, cool, oh my gosh, let's do more. Wherever you are, it's okay. Be here now. This is the place where we have to start. We have to start from here. So the things, the people, the relationships, the jobs, the gigs, the material items like your clothes, your shoes, whatever it is, your favorite handbag. I'm not into handbags, but it's really cool if you are. Those are the things that you've been able to attract into your life. Now, let's say you're in a place where, which most people are, even the most successful people are still in this place. I'm in this place and I've been a successful singer for a long time. If you're in the place where you are wanting something more, especially for your singing, since that's what this all comes back to, then listen up. If you're in a place where you're wanting something more, let's do the inner work to unpack what might be the reason you're attracting experiences that are less than desirable. I feel like I'm just like blasting this at you right now. I hope you can just take it all in. You may want to listen twice to this one. You may want to watch twice. So, the things that are in your life right now, if they are not what you want, if you have financial scarcity in your life or fewer financial resources than you want, if there are problems in your voice that you are like, but there's always this one part of my voice is blah, blah, blah. Let's take a look at those things. How about career opportunities? Like I was saying, if you're desiring more out of career opportunities or things that maybe they feel a higher level, more visibility, more impact, maybe more aligned repertoire for you, or things that maybe you're attracted to a kind of repertoire and you want to move in that direction. Those things that you're desiring to bring into your reality, you can do so. And let me help you connect the dots since I'm so passionate about doing that. So if you look around your life now, like we've been talking about, and you're seeing things that you're like, I don't like that. Like this one friend, I'm just making things up because my friends are amazing, but let's say you have, like, you feel like you have a frenemy situation or somebody who's not always there for you. Take a look at that and go, if I'm the reason, if I'm the magnet and I magnetized this person to me, I've got to look at what is it behind the scenes that magnetized that relationship to me. Let's take singing opportunities. Let's say you have some kind of a gig happening, but it's not paying what you feel that you deserve, or it's not paying the amount of money, even if it's just a one-time concert, that's what I'm thinking of. It's not paying enough to meet your financial needs. Let's take a look at that. If you're the magnet and you magnetized an opportunity to yourself that's not truly aligned, I mean, hey, we're on the aligned singer. If it is not feeling aligned, if it's feeling misaligned or out of alignment, let's look at that. Let me give you one more example. What about your living situation, your home? If you're the magnet and you magnetize something to you that's like good enough but not exactly what you want, let's take a look at that. I'm really passionate about home and living and making sure you have a space where you can practice and be creative, so let's take a look at that. Now, consciously, meaning in your normal waking state, that part of you might actually be ready for greater opportunities. But here's where we have to look when it comes to manifesting. Manifesting is rooted way deeper down than that. Again, it's not coming, the things that you are attracting in your life, sure, you can do. Remember, we talked about the inner work and the outer work at the beginning of this episode? You can do the outer work to get there. The thing is, the inner work is way faster. It's not always as emotionally simple, but it is way faster once you start to clear the blocks. Then things start to come in really fast. So, in order to create things in your life that are more aligned, if things like what we were just talking about feel a little bit out of whack, the place to look is deep inside. The place to look is deep inside of yourself. If you've brought things into your life that you're now looking at and you're starting to open your eyes to it and go, oh, I actually deserved to be paid more for that gig. I wonder why that came into my life and not the thing that I really deserve. Capital D, deserve. These bigger things that you deserve in your life, which you do on a soul level. Or let's take your living situation. That one, it can be complex because I don't know your exact situation, but if you're like, there's these couple things that are kind of like, not so aligned with my living situation. Where did that come from? We've got to, again, look deep inside of ourselves. I'll explain to you some of the different practices that I do, but basically, if you're wanting to shift the opportunities, we're going to go back to singing for a second, the opportunities that you're getting as a singer, you've got to shift on a deeper level. It's not just the outer work, it's the inner work. I want to give you an example. This morning I was out in the garden puttering around and planning how I wanted to explain this to you. Last weekend, I was at a party at a friend's home. These friends are older than me. They have adult children who are young adults in their 20s. And I was at their home, which is very beautiful, and spending time with their son, who recently graduated from grad school for theater and voice. I love that kid so much. He's so gifted. And his energy is very magnetic. So this morning while I was gardening around, I was like, oh, I see. This is my perfect example because it's just so fresh in my mind. And there are tons of these examples that I've seen throughout my own life and career as I've needed to do work to start to be more, come into more alignment with the opportunities that I want that are greater. I want to tell you about this person for a second. And I bet you in your circles of singers, performers, and artists, you'll think of your own version of this young man. So he holds himself very well. He is very confident, and well so. He's very gifted, very confident, really, really, really well supported by his family. They are, both parents are 100% supportive of him. They have the means to help him in whatever way. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure they funded his education and supported him with his move to New York City. They also live near New York City. So they live near me. I'm about an hour north of NYC, my beautiful hometown. And my hometown after Missouri, which is why this is a good example in my mind. So they're able to go and support him at performances, take him out to dinner, take him out to lunch, and they're already very well connected. Maybe not well connected in the arts, but they have relationships with people in the city because his dad sometimes works in Manhattan. I could go on and on and on. This particular singer also has never faced, because we've talked about it, I know it, and he knows I'm a voice teacher, he's never faced major vocal trouble. So he's never had big bumps in the road. It gave me chills just now because it makes me happy when singers don't face vocal trouble, since I did. and some of my students do, but he's not the type of singer. You know, there are singers like that who really never got tangled up vocally. They just had voice teachers that were able to continue to usher along their craft and support them, and they didn't get all tangled up vocally. And their path is smoother because of that, and he's a great example of that. He, way back in high school, in the drama program, got great opportunities, really was seen, etc. And at home, he was, as I already said, really, really well supported by his mom and dad, my friends. They're actually incredible parents. I am so inspired by their family life, and it's really genuine, and they're not putting on a show. They're amazing people. Ugh, geez. That's why we're friends. They're so cool. So I'm thinking of this young man and thinking, wow, as he graduates from grad school, as he starts to pursue his career, it would not surprise me if he started to book opportunities that are more and more prestigious immediately. In fact, I expect that's going to happen. Let's unpack why. Do you remember all the things I described, all these behind the scenes things that were able to support him in his artistic journey? He's been able to be uplifted by his community, his family, his parents, his siblings, his teachers, his mentors. And really, that has cleared the path. So this particular person probably doesn't have a ton of internal tangled upness, entanglements, or we'll call them blocks today, around his voice, his talent, and his ability to succeed. My guess, if we had a heart-to-heart, is that what I see and what he has shared is truly what meets the eye, that his path has been pretty smooth, and that smoothness is just going to continue to attract really good opportunities into his life. Let's take someone else. Let's take an example of somebody like me. So, I did sing well as a teenager, but then in undergrad, when I was in conservatory, I worked with a voice teacher that wasn't right for me and drove my voice sadly into the ground. It was awful. If you heard the first episode of The Aligned Singer, you heard me share about that and about my journey of reworking my voice and my technique, and that it took 6 years to get my first paid singing opportunity. If you have anything like that that's happened, whether it's vocally or maybe in your family life, your family was not very supportive or they weren't able to support you for whatever reason, I know a lot of people just like me who moved to New York City, like my friend's son, and don't have connections or come from a family with a very modest income or a very broke or poor family. They do not have the support network and that safety net around them, especially if you move from really far away and you have a family. For example, I'm from Missouri and people don't do airplane trips very much where I'm from. So it was like out of this world, out of the world and reality of the people that I grew up with, including my family, that they would take an airplane to come and see me. And that might sound nuts to you, but that's how it is in the Midwest, in certain areas, in certain communities. And that's the type of community I came from. So I was moving to New York, as I said in the very first episode of The Aligned Singer. My voice was trashed. I was in the wrong voice part, meaning like dramatic mezzo. Are you joking me? That is not my voice type. I had no repertoire to audition with, no skills to audition with, and nobody around to help. And I don't remember if I told you this before or not, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody in Manhattan. So if you're anything like me, you are not set up with that scaffolding around you and that support system around you. Even if you don't have vocal trouble, you didn't have vocal trouble ever, it can still create more friction. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, because you can see I'm talking about a bunch of external stuff. We're not like going like deeply into the subconscious mind, but let's bridge and go there. So somebody like the person that I told you about, in his deeper subconscious, so we have the conscious, I should tell you this, we have the conscious and the subconscious. Conscious is like what we're doing right now, talking with each other. Maybe you're taking a walk. looking deeply into your AirPods while you're riding the subway or driving in the car. That's your conscious waking state. We also have deeper layers in our neurology, in our brain, that go deeper down. And that's where different things can swim around with us not realizing it and block us from being able to easily draw in greater and greater opportunities with more visibility that are more aligned for you, where you can attract in more success. It lives in the subconscious where those things are. These little tangly webs, they're totally untangleable, by the way. They're not permanent because we have something called the magic of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, plastic meaning it can bend, meaning our brain can change. So we'll get there in a second. But let's just take the contrasting example of myself as an example, because I don't want to talk about anybody else's dirt on this podcast except for my own. I seem to talk about my dirt all the time. I'm just kidding. So let's take me as a 22-year-old and my friend's son. Let's just say he's 22. I think he's older than that. And guess who's going to have an easier time attracting in opportunities? It's probably not the person with a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes. That would be this lady right here. So let's say we're in a position where we do, as we talked about before, want to attract more into our lives. How do we do that? Well, as I said before, we've got to start to go deeper and deeper and deeper within. If you've never thought about patterns, think of it as be a pattern finder. Patterns in your life, that is one way to be able to start to be like a detective and deduce like, oh, there might be a block around that pattern. Let me give you a few examples. First, let's start with a positive example. Let's say, I'm giving you a silly one because this is a true one from my own life. The pattern in my life is I can always seem to find a parking spot in Manhattan. So if you've ever been to New York City with a car, you know that it can be really hard to find free, open parking in New York City. Like, it's really hard. But for whatever reason, I have an easy time with it. And so my expectation is that I'll have an easy time with it because I always do. And if it ever goes awry or I ever need to pay for parking, it's no big deal because my emotional set point where I usually am is like, oh, this is easy for me. This is so easy for me. Let's take a musical example for a second. Maybe, I have a lot of students that are like this. Maybe you happen to be a great sight reader. You have really good musicality, you're a really great sight reader, and if you ever need to sight read in an audition for something, you're like going into the audition, maybe you're nervous about other things, but the sight reading comes along and you're like, oh, I've always been good at sight reading. Yes, I'm going to shine. And guess what? That energy right there is going to uplift you in that audition because you'd already know that your pattern is that you're good at sight reading or good at, who knows, maybe you're great at a dance call. Oh, that would be so cool. Very cool if you are. Now, let's take some less positive examples, some things that are a little more constricted. Let's go back to the examples I gave you from my own life when I first moved to New York City. At the time, though I realized it and I also didn't realize it. Remember, I told you it was years into living in New York City. 2014 was many years into living in New York City in my life. So I had moved there in 2006. So you do the math. I believe that's 8 years into living in New York, and I started to figure this out. But at the time, when I was 22 years old and I moved to the Big Apple, I didn't have a support system around me. So I was unsupported. That is a pattern. Before we can get to the juicy, amazing part where I help you start to solve this stuff so that you can attract bigger and better opportunities that are more aligned for you into your life and career, let's talk about how you can figure out the place where you're actually drawing things into your life that aren't really serving you or are not as good as what you truly, truly deserve. How do we start to figure that out? I want you to start to look for patterns. Let's talk about what patterns even mean. To be able to find them, you've got to zoom out in your own life, in the history of your life, and start to see if you see, hey, this thing happened and it seems like something sort of like it that has the same sort of feeling, our energy around it happened over and over and over and over and over again. And now when I do XYZ, or when this type of person comes into my life, you can start to see it that it's related to that pattern. And that pattern, when you start to heal the root of it, that's how you can shift the results that you're starting to see in your life. You'll start to see them change as you start to heal the effect of this old pattern. But where do we actually have to go to figure out where the root is? Well, when I was giving you examples from my own life, I was like, oh, when I was 22, I moved to New York and I didn't know people. And I will say, in your singing life, the pursuit of your career, and in your technique, you can have experiences that contract you and limit you starting at that age. But most likely, that's more rare, most likely it started when you were a kid. I know, maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't. But when you were little, when you were a kid, if you had an experience, let's take my example of not having a lot of support around me when I moved to New York City. That's not where that started. That started as a kid, just started playing out in my life in different ways when I was older, in seemingly ways that are seemingly unrelated, but it all goes back to the same root. Like somebody planted a weed and the weed's kind of there. And then after a while, you're like, wait, does that belong? I guess that's just part of the landscaping, but actually it was a weed that you didn't mean to plant. Guess who's that's happened to? That has happened to me. That is happening right now. I'm sure something out there is a weed and I'm like, well, I think I'm just going to leave it. That probably won't last long. But that's kind of what happens. When you're a kid, you're not like, great, I'm going to have this kind of not aligned or negative experience and blah, blah, blah. No, you're at the mercy of other people when you were little. But let's say something happened in your life that's misaligned. Let's stop using my example of not knowing anybody and not having a lot of resources when I moved to New York. What I want to turn to is an example of what if, when you were little, people didn't really fully see your gift, that you were a great singer, really talented on stage, really gifted. Maybe it was a teacher at school. Maybe it was the whole school community. Maybe it was your peers at school. Maybe it was a grandparent or a parent, or your family dynamic just didn't support your passion and love for voice. I'm so sorry if that happened to you. That's just awful. It gives me chills of sadness to think about that. But for a lot of singers, that's the case. And then when they're an adult or young adult and out there pursuing your craft, putting yourself out there online, auditioning for things, going out there, networking, you might encounter situations. And here's the part about manifesting that's so important. If you don't like the stuff you're getting, you got to go and heal the root of it. But let's say this person that we're imagining, maybe it's you weren't fully seen for your full gifts as a kid. You were not celebrated for it. It was kind of like dismissed, or people didn't know what to do with you, or they said you were too much, whatever that might be. I've heard it all. Then as an adult, that might play out in experiences like being in work environments where people aren't really seeing and celebrating your abilities. Being in gigs where you kind of feel like other people are getting like a favor or a lot of positive feedback and you're kind of brushed aside. Here's what happens. What happens is those experiences happen when we're little, and without realizing it, it's not our fault, but without realizing it, you might expect that result again. Remember that silly nonsense example that I gave about easily finding parking spaces in New York City? I mean, ask my friends. They all know that this is a thing for me. I now expect that's going to happen. I expect it's going to be easy. What if our expectation, and it is sometimes, is negative? What if your expectation when you go to an audition or when you reach out to somebody has to do, and it's like, oh, it's probably not going to work out. Oh, it's not going to be that great. Or like, oh, I'm putting myself out there, but it oftentimes doesn't work out. And it may be a whisper. It's probably not your big, loud thoughts that are in your head. It's not the big sentences. It's just a sensation or a whisper. If it's there, if you start to go, wait, she's onto something. There is something there. Watch yourself go and spiral down to an early in life experience when that happened. And if you can start to heal around that experience, the pattern will change. Why? Let's go back to neuroplasticity. Oh, and I forgot to tell you what that's called, that expectation. Hold up, let me slow my roll. It's called your reticular activating system. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That would be so embarrassing if I'm not. But I believe it's called the reticular activating system. It's a system in your brain that's like you and your friend are talking about a red convertible. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I feel like I'm seeing red convertibles everywhere. It's just because you started to notice them more because it was brought to your attention. The reticular activating system can work in a positive way. Like you want to be on the lookout for, I don't know, a new fave pair of jeans for a certain price. And you're like, everywhere you're like, oh, wait, that one could be cute. That could be cute. You know what I mean? I'm imagining that you're walking around the Lower East Side of New York City at the vintage shops. That's probably not where you live. But if it is, you should go to the vintage shops. If you're on vacation in New York, you should go to the Lower East Side vintage shops. They're great. But it could be something like that. The next time you're taking the subway or driving around or taking a walk, start to be like, taking a walk is actually a great example. It's a very universal example. Pick one thing. Maybe it's like a weird thing on a chain link fence if you're in LA. Maybe if you live in the country or out in you have access to nature like I do, you could be like, I am gonna see how my reticular activating system works, and I'm gonna try to find this one. At this time when I'm recording this, there's this one little mountain laurel that's in bloom. I'm gonna see if I see that color where I go. And you'll be like, wait, I see it there. I see it there. I see it there. And you'll track it and be like, oh my gosh, I saw it 6 times. That's because your brain is more tuned in, zoomed in to looking for it. And we can train our brain to look for more possibility, to look for more of the positive, to look for more of what you want and less of what you don't. That's part of manifesting. There's one more thing that I want to talk about before we finish up today, and that is the importance and the incredible power of neuroplasticity. We have got to talk about neuroplasticity before I leave you off today. So when I was telling you at the beginning of this episode that way back in 2014, I started hearing about like the law of attraction and manifesting. I was like, what is that? I want better opportunities in my singing career. How can I get that? I was like really excited about it. And I still am to this day. I talk about manifesting all the time, every single day. I have an accountability buddy for it. It's the whole 9 yards. But what I didn't know at the time, because there was not a lot of information about this at that time, but now there is, how amazing, is the neuroscience behind manifesting. So it's very simple. And I started to learn this because I had a life coach for a while back. It was just after that I guess I manifested him. He was amazing. I worked with him for years, like 7 years straight. And he was the one who taught me this concept. I believe it came from him. I thought it came from myself. And then in a coaching session, he was like, oh, I taught you that. And I'm like, thank you. I think about this all the time now. And I'll share it with you. So neuroplasticity means, as I said before, your brain's ability to change itself, to be like moving, like plastic. That's the word. I guess that's why it's called that. What we use in modern day is plastic. But it means that it can shift and change. Neuropathways. So remember how we were talking about how there is a pattern that can play out? There are multiple ones playing out in your life right now. And some of them are playing well and some of them are not. And you want to change them. We're talking about the ones that you want to change. So A neural pathway was formed around a repeated experience that happened over and over. So let's go back to the example that I imagined of somebody who wasn't fully recognized for their gift of singing when they were young. And this person didn't really recognize them. And then when you were 8 years old, this person did. And when you're 4 years old, that person didn't really recognize you. And you just generally started to feel unrecognized for your gift. That is a pattern. The pattern creates a neuro pathway. What the heck is a neural pathway? Neuro means brain. Pathway means pathway, path. It's a lot like a trail, a hiking trail, where one person walks down it and then another person, another person, another person. And after 200 people have hiked this hiking trail, it's a really nice path. It's a really nice hiking trail. Well, it started by a pattern of going down it again and again and again and again. And that's how our entire belief system and brain is formed. We do the same thing or a similar thing over and over and over and over and over again. And I am obsessed with neuroscience. Obsessed because it's how we transform and change and create more of what we want in our lives. And I'm so freaking obsessed with it because I want you to be able to do that in your life. And of course, I want to be able to do it too, and do it. So that's what a neural pathway is. And it's formed, again, by going over it again and again and again and again. Now, as I said, your neural pathways can support things that are positive in your life or things that you don't want in your life. Let's talk about the things that you don't want in your life. If you've had an aha moment during this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, Sarah, I had this negative experience when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, around my singing, or around feeling unsupported, or around, I don't know, whatever it is that's sticking out in your mind is the thing. Your brain is being like, here, I'm going to bring this to the surface because you're thinking about this right now while Sarah's talking about it. It's probably that. And that little weed was planted, and then you started going down, I'm mixing my metaphors, but stick with me. You started going down that pathway, or someone else did, over and over and over again. So then you're believing that to be true, and then remember the reticular activating system of your brain. Now you're seeing it. You're seeing it everywhere. And what we forget is instead of just seeing it everywhere all over, you're creating it again and again and again. Because, and if you got distracted again, I want you to zoom back in and come back to me. Because you're still creating from the place from long ago. We're talking about 5 years old, 6 years old. The things that were celebrated that are in alignment, you're still creating those positive things. And the things that were more constrictive, you might still be creating from those things. So how do we change it? It's a bigger discussion. And if you love talking about this on the Aligned Singer, I want you to reach out to me. I'll tell you how at the end. And let me know, because I'm happy to teach more and more and more on this topic. I really want you to be able to manifest the things that you're wanting and desiring, because those desires come from a soul place. It's not an ego place most of the time. So, how do we truly change when things are on that deep level? We have to start to transform from that deep place. I'm going to rattle off a few things that I do to help. You might try these things and you may find other tools as well. If you want me to actually take you through exercises on the Aligned Singer or make some free resources around this, I would love to. I would honestly love to. I just want to make sure you want to go in this direction before I spend a bunch of time making stuff for you. But don't be shy. Tell me if you want me to lead you through exercises. So my go-to tools are, number 1, meditation. Number 2, visualization and creative visualization, where I get myself into a deeply relaxed meditative state and start to creatively visualize. I'm explaining that to you. I'm going, it's been actually a while since I've done that. So guess what I'm doing first thing tomorrow morning? That for my meditation practice. I do a lot of visualization, but creative visualization is slightly different. I do a hypnosis practice. I think I mentioned it once. I might have not released that episode, but I worked with a hypnotist for a while. We'll talk about it in another episode. It was for performance nerves. And I started to realize, oh, I can do this to myself. He taught me some techniques, which I still use many, many, many years later. To this day, I literally did it this morning in my hammock. So I will go into a trance-like hypnosis. Hypnosis just means you're super, super, super relaxed. And you can work more with your brain when it's really, really relaxed like that. That's why I could have a lot of healing with performance jitters, because I was hypnotized. It went extremely fast. We're talking, really fast, like a couple of weeks. It was bananas. I'm going to deep dive into a different episode on it. And my other go-to tool that anybody can do is journaling. I also like to voice note, but journaling for some reason takes it to a deeper level. Sometimes when I'm talking things through, that's one surface level, but another surface level deeper is writing it. And I mentioned this once on the Aligned Singer, I think in the fill in the blank exercise that we did a few episodes back. But when you actually write with pen, pencil, for me, gel pens, and paper, you're again reaching into a very old neuropathway. Now I can use that word on the Aligned Singer because you know what it is. You're reaching into a very old neuropathway when you first started to learn to write, which would have been scribbles when you were like 2 years old. So those are my main go-to tools. The other one that I use, if you've ever heard of EFT tapping, it's where you tap on points in your body, emotional freedom technique. I've been really dying to do an entire episode where I take you through a few EFTs. It's been really, really, really helpful for me in all areas of life, in my personal life, finances, obviously in my career when I'm wanting to put myself out there in a bigger way, before a big audition, before a big speaking engagement, all of it. I will tap, 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 tap. So I use that a lot. And those are the main tools. There are also tools out there that are more somatic in nature, where you do different sounds, a lot like vocalizing, actually. I'm like, oh, well, in bel canto, we've been doing that for hundreds of years, and now the therapy world is just like catching on. The other thing I do, led by a therapist, I mentioned this once before, is I do something called EMDR, where you move your eyes back and forth and work through things that are stickier, or like the weed that's like really taking root and really want to work on it. I heard about it through, I think it was a podcast years ago, and it got me interested, podcast related to manifesting or all about manifesting. And I was like, I think I'm going to try that for the deeper things that I want to like disentangle and unblock. So those are all the tools that I use. And quietude and walking through the woods or wherever brings you joy is also a great way to start to get that energy moving, to go back. What you want to do is go back to the really early experience, like the earliest time that you can track where this pattern started, and be like, oh, okay, I was XYZ years old. Here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, if it's a super, super, super big trauma, that you need to do with a professional. But oftentimes for singing related things, it's not huge. It's like, oh, the pattern started there, and I can go ahead and start to work this out. So there you have it. That's your overview on manifesting. Now you know it's these deep, deep, deep beliefs that play out in your life. And if you want to shift it, if you want to shift the results you are seeing in your life, like I said, I said this way at the beginning of the episode, it's just like singing. If you want to shift the results in vocalizing, you need to readjust your voice to create towards that different sound. It's exactly the same with manifesting. It's crazy the connection between the two. With manifesting, you go back and you're like, oh, I was 6 years old, and the other kid said, I'm going to give a different example now that I've heard. That other 6-year-old said, I sounded bad and I shouldn't do the toy microphone. This is literally an example that I've heard multiple people share. And then when you were 6, you were like, oh, I don't sing very good. I'm talking like a 6-year-old on purpose. I don't sing very good, and I shouldn't play with the toy microphone because I don't sound good. But the 6-year-old child was just being a 6-year-old child, and probably this is the simple stuff to unblock. If you're on your walk, if you're journaling, oh, they were just a little kid and just made a mistake. And you were the one that took it so seriously. You can fill that example in with anything that happened. Like they were just a kid and made a mistake, but you're the one that internalized it, and then it probably, let's say, kept playing out in your life, and now you're like, I'm struggling with my voice and I never quite got my technique. Wait a second, it's because of that one thing that happened when I was 6 years old? Yes, it is. And you can release it, you can transform it because of the power of your brain to change, because you're built with neuroplasticity. Everybody is. You can change it. I'm going to leave it there. That was so much fun to share with you. If you have questions that came up, or if you feel like there's something that I touched on that you want to go deeper in, don't be shy. If you want me to teach more on this, as I said, would love to. You can connect with me at Voice Teacher Sarah on YouTube, I almost said Spotify. No, not on Spotify. That's not. If you want to write to me and talk back and forth, I'm there on YouTube. You can DM me on TikTok and Instagram. Again, it's at Voice Teacher Sarah. If you want to study voice with me or do one of my small group programs that's coming up, Google Sarah Hockey Voice Teacher. I'm in an amazing brand refresh right now, and I'm going to change my domain name. So you'll find the current domain name if you do it that way. Google Sarah Hockey Voice Teacher, and you'll find my website. That's how you can apply to work with me. I would love to help you. I would love to help you. And now that you know, oh my gosh, this would be so cool if you applied for voice lessons now, because now you'll already know that there's a huge connection between your vocal technique transformation and manifesting in your career. That's so cool. My other students don't know that yet, but I'll send this to them so they do. And we'll leave it there. As your bel canto bestie, I want to remind you, just like we started off this episode talking about, that manifesting the things that you're truly desiring from a soul level place is so freaking important, because you're here for a reason. You have a purpose. Your voice has purpose, and nobody else can sing the way that you do. Nobody else interprets a role, interprets a song, whatever you sing. They don't do it like you do. And we need your voice out into the world. So do not forget that. Use your reticular activating system to find more ways to share your voice. I don't know, I'm just teasing. I can't wait to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. It means so much to me when we spend this time together. You have no idea. Bye for now.